in a contract, you can agree to anything, but it's at the point that the city is not playing fair up there. They're doing one thing to Tenant that they didn't do to Eureka. So that's your city council up there. Okay, let's play a little more.
Into this, that has gone to the trouble of spending, a year or more having a panel of residents look into all the information. Inevitably, they come up with a recommendation that this makes sense to do, and inevitably, people at the political decision-making level get blindsided by the vehemence of opposition from a narrow group of people that are really motivated against it and are in many cases profoundly misled.
Narrow group of people. 1,800 postcards, 250 people showing up at a council meeting, standing room all the way out past where you can get your driver's license out there. And these yahoos, well, remember, now, the one of five, the guy that runs the meeting up there, has changed the vernacular. So now you can call these people buffoons and idiots, because that's the language that comes from the city council itself. So these buffoons and idiots up there have to have this special little workshop where, and Mr. Intellectual, pseudo-intellectual there says, we want to listen to the people, but you can't speak at this meeting. Pseudo-intellectual John Nephew. This narrow group of people, over 1,800 postcards, and over 250 people show up, and these yahoos have to have a meeting to try to figure out what the people were telling them. And then, they insult you. What do you say? Narrow point of view? All you people that want, capitalism and free markets and the right to contract, you have a narrow point of view. Mr. Pseudo-Intellectual just told you that. All right, let's play some more.
Misled.
We heard kind of over and over from people that that they didn't want government involvement and that they were concerned about cost that we would have. And so Mr. Nephew was talking about the fact that different cities have things set up differently. And I know in some cities that they actually have a revenue stream from the process they have set up. Well,
and I think he might talk about Roseville. I don't know, but Kathy Juniman, if it's on here, she did I call it the lie of omission, because she talked about Roseville. Well, Roseville will pick up your leaves, and it started out, but that was a additional charge, and it started out at $5 or $10, and now it's up to, I guess, about $30. And there aren't a lot of people that use it, but the people that do use it, what Kathy failed to tell you was that the city of Roseville subsidizes that at a tune of, it was $100,000 or $150,000, So the people that do use it and pay $30, they're not paying for it, because the real cost is the subsidy that the city of Roseville, that I've been showed some of the figures, that put in $100,000 or $150,000 over and above that. So, all right, let's play some more.
Need some information, factual information. In the absence of facts, myth becomes reality. And if we only hear bits and pieces and sound bites and misinformation, then without having factual data in order to refute that, the conversation gets muddled and it gets sidetracked. And so I would reiterate the importance of having some studies that have been done before, as Mr. Nephew talked about, before us, to review certainly what other cities have done, their successes, their failures, almost like case studies. Here's an example of City A. This is what their issues were. This is what they've seen. I think that process would be incredibly important. In this thing, this has become such an emotional piece for so many people. And that, to me, is a little unsettling, and that we have heard from a number of anti-organized folk and a handful of pro. And I think they summarize themselves into 5 big objections, as the mayor alluded to. Big government, whatever that means to certain people. Freedom of enterprise, being afraid of the little guy being squashed. Certainly the last one, if it's not broken, then why are we even having this conversation? To some people, it's fine. Why go there? I hate the idea, or I resent the notion, that because there is a special interest group who has the money to combat the thought of it, that we ought to be afraid of it and not even have the conversation. And I take great exception to the idea that certain people think that they can scare people with misinformation so that they're not getting the facts. We're talking about having a conversation. We're not even saying, hey, we think this is a good idea, let's go forward. We're saying, hey, well, we think this is a good idea enough to have a conversation. And we're not even having a conversation because we're afraid of what people are going to say to us, or they get 100,000 emails, whatever we got. And I think it's the wrong way to govern. It's the wrong way to listen to a collective group of people. We've heard from a number of people, and I respect every single one of those opinions. For the record, I'm 50-50. I literally just don't have enough information to make a decision one way or the other about the end vote. But I'm 100% committed to the idea that we ought to have that conversation. I mean, to think that some people who have far more funds than the city does to go out and touch every single resident to not even have the conversation, I think is a bad way to govern. And so for me, we have plenty to do. We don't want to be in the garbage business. That's not what we're doing in terms of big government. We're talking about, is there a meaningful impact? Is there a benefit to our residents? Unless we can do it better and cheaper, that I would have a hard time voting for it. You don't always do what's popular, you do what's right. And if it's right that we eventually put this to a vote before the council, then fantastic. But to not do it because we're afraid of pissing some people off kind of is the wrong way to do it.
There's something deviously clever.
Well, what did he say? Even though we got 100,000 emails opposed to this, these people are all bunch of jackals, you know? They've been manipulated. The city would never manipulate you. You know, I didn't bring it in, but, you know, the city sends out that monthly Maplewood in Motion or whatever they call it. You don't, and Rosbach even talked about the fact that they need to establish a PR fund so they can promote and sell this, you know. And Lannis, that was funny, the last week when that guy called in and says, take the 2 L's off of Lannis's name, and that's what you have left, last name. Write his name and do that. One of the callers was very astute. But has government ever done anything better and cheaper? Has Maplewood? How about the community center? Has the community center ever run in the black? No. Has it always run in the red? Yes. But you know what? Maplewood can do it better and cheaper. Special interest group. You know, they're so good up there at vilifying, the council and the staff up there that want to grow government are so good at vilifying everybody else. You know what? It would be wonderful if we, the citizens, had the resources that government has to manipulate the people's minds. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Let's take a call here. Caller, are you with us? Question or comment?
Hi, Bob.
Yes.
Excellent show tonight. Always enjoy your commentary, your opinions, and your point of view. I sure think that Maplewood City Council should try to listen to the point of view and opinions of some of the Maplewood residents and other citizens once for all.
Well, the council's going to push this down the citizens' throat, whether you want it or not. You know, the council knows better. Well, I mean, Kathy Dingy, 0 of 5 up there. That's her new name, 0 of 5.
Bob, I heard Mr. Lana say that he wants the conversation. I don't know what he wants the conversation, with who he wants the conversation. If he's like the rest of the club, and I'm thinking of Miss McCullum, she's a runner. You try to bring up and talk to her and discuss what she says, she runs away. I seen John Nephew just the other night. Somebody tried to discuss something about what the strategy they were having in the back room. A lot of people were out there listening, and instead of addressing the public, he ran away with his, it looked like a big bag of food from the back room.
Well, the citizens have to buy them dinner every week, you know. We'll go in the back room and we'll have a quorum back there, and we'll sit around and stuff our face, you know, with some gourmet food we had catered in here. And, of course, the public, we're not going to invite them back there, but we're going to sit back there and violate the open meeting law and talk about the things we like to talk about, you know, like maybe how we're going to shove this government-run garbage hauling down the residents' throat, whether they want it or not. Thanks, caller.
Well, one other thing, Bob, I was listening to your entire show tonight, an excellent show. Hardly can wait to see the rerun. Bob, the issue on the St. Paul School superintendent and the head of the teachers union, Mary Rickner, do you have more information about how those two work together? My experience with them is they're good buds. Is that appropriate? I mean, is that the best way to run a district when the union and the management are on the same side?
Well,
like they are up at Maplewood?
They sit on the same side of the table in these arbitration hearings. Well, of course, that way they can go to lunch together. You know, you go along, get along. We're all in it for the ride.
Well, I read in competition's paper, the Pioneer Press, is Mary Reckner, head of the St. Paul School Teachers Union.
She's
she
president.
Actually went outside the rules, and they gave her a variance, or they overlooked the rules, whatever you want to say that she could take another term as a teacher union head. And I never heard an explanation why that occurred.
Well, you know, it's as president down there, you know, it's like, it was like, well, maybe we should have done that for George Bush. Let him be president for another 4 years. Then we wouldn't have to be dealing with all this hope and change that's killing us. All right, caller, thanks. All right, what do we have? Do we have more clips here? You know, I don't think we're going to get to, we had some clips on North St. Paul we wanted to play, and I think the big thing that we wanted to put out there was the city manager referred to the police department as a paramilitary organization, and of course, look at Maplewood, paramilitary organization. And you remember all those stories I told you about the police department in North St. Paul and Maplewood and White Bear Lake, and we're going to rediscuss some of that stuff. But, all right, let's play some more clips. Let's see if we can get through some of this stuff here. All right, we're down to about 4 minutes. What do we have here?
Deviously clever about the way the organized hauling statute is written, which is that it seems really designed to, and the trash lobby has been very effective in exploiting this. It seems designed to insert as much controversy before there's anything that you can really nail down as specific. I think we really need to be getting into the specifics, and the sooner the better.
The usual initial thought is that, well, we don't want a consultant, we'll just have staff do some stuff. And so I think that it's important that we have a little bit of discussion about how busy staff is, and you know, whether or not we think that essentially it would be more expensive or less expensive to have a consultant. Now, granted, if we have a consultant, we're going to have a line item for paying that person versus the, you know, the weekly paychecks. But I mean, how much time are we going to ask staff to take away from the other things that we have them doing?
You know, we went out and checked with consultants. I mean, we're talking about a full-blown study